music to the noise, yeah, the mess we make. Machine Pun Kelly get caught in the fake. Facts and logic with a twist of jest. Strip it down to truth, yeah, forget the rest. You propose the lies right out of the park. Look beyond the shadows that set the dark. Sparks of laughter fire up the night, bringing clarity when they blur the fight. Cut through the chaos, yeah, the tangled lives. Machine Pun Kelly with a set of clear eyes. Truths and jokes gonna rock this show. Step into light where the real facts glow.
Hey there, and welcome to the Punch Show, where the real facts glow. Do you like the theme song, John and Jess?
Yes, absolutely.
So today, as you can see, I have a couple of guests joining me. There might be a third one joining in a little bit. And this is something, I've been talking about on my show a little bit. If you look at South Korea, and what happened there to where they were able to just remove their authoritarian despot dictator guy. It wasn't like there was this movement that came together and agreed on every single thing and got rid of him. It was a diverse people with different priorities, different goals, but they were able to come together and unify in the idea of taking down this authoritarian dictator. And, Al Franken used to make this argument that you don't debate the color of the drapes when the house is burning down, and I really love that analogy. I feel like on the left, sometimes we spend too much time debating the drapes while the house is burning down. Right now, we have a full-on dictator that is talking about taking away the right to due process, sending American citizens to torture prisons in El Salvador. I just recently did an article on my Substack, found almost 60 different ways he's violating our constitutional rights. There is some questions about, how we've become almost an undemocratic country at this point. They act like democracy is a bad word. We are really becoming, we in many ways are entering the dystopian realm. And it may be that if we don't win back the House in 2026, that it'll be too late. This is kind of our last chance to save the American experiment. And I think that maybe we get too caught up in debating things that I don't want to say they're frivolous or not important, because they are frivolous and they are important. And I think that there are people on the, to the left of the Democrats, like the Bernie Bros and stuff like that. And we tell them if to just get on board, and at a certain point, once the primaries are over, I feel like that's valid. But I think before the primaries, we shouldn't be doing that. We should be listening to them, and allow them to participate in the discussion. They're going to not want to participate in our democracy if they don't feel like they can't participate in the discussion about our democracy. So with that intro, I just want to introduce John and Jess. And I just would like to, we'll start with John. And just where do you align politically? Like what, we'll just ask this. What is, for both of you, where do you align politically and what is the most important issue to you? So we'll start with John.
Wow. Yeah, I would say I'm a progressive activist, and my bottom line is I advocate for everyone's human rights, for freedom and dignity for every individual. And that's really my bottom line. And it shows, in many, many different issues, but the core issue is everyone should have freedom and dignity.
Even trans people?
Especially trans people, they're on the thin edge of the wedge. And when we don't stand with our trans brothers and sisters, we know trans folk, if we don't stand shoulder to shoulder with our trans communities, then they're coming for us next. And
Right.
that's you gotta hold the line right there. You cannot afford erosion of anyone's rights. I mean, every single person needs to have freedom and dignity. And they're really, when people sometimes ask me as a human rights researcher, writer, and advocate, how, what I think about human rights, I say, well, human rights are for everyone, everywhere, all the time, with no exceptions.
I like to say no one has more rights than the person who has the least rights, because
Right.
it's only a difference of, who's in charge or whatever. As soon as somebody else loses rights, they become, they cease to be rights and they become privileges.
Right. And as Martin Luther King Jr. said, injustice anywhere threatens justice everywhere.
Martin Luther King is a little more eloquent than I am, so I'll give him that. Okay, Jess, your turn.
Okay. Well, I am Jess. I actually am pretty center. I've always considered myself more purple than anything. Up until this election, I think I definitely leaned more like independent liberal, and then after this election, now everybody's calling me a Democrat. So, I am just honestly here to help others. I have spent my career working in child welfare. Or hold on one second, okay? I am so sorry.
No worries.
I knew having a sick kid at home today was not going to go well. Okay. But I've spent my career working child welfare, social welfare. I've worked with brain injuries, human trafficking, autism, IEPs. So I see the whole big picture. And to me, it is all connected, but it is really about if we respect everybody on a basic human level, okay? I mean, it's very simple: kindness, empathy. Um, humans can thrive with a little bit of love, and a lot of people are also not given the same opportunities. And I see that very much so in the rural district, that I live in, the rural community. And it makes it really hard because then you're just immediately categorized. You are low income, you are food stamps, we provide this, we provide that. And at the end of the day, I mean, the taxpayers really aren't paying that much, for food stamps and Title I and stuff like that. So that is what I am here for, is to be a voice for others. And I'm also very, very, very active right now in helping others kind of with their mental health, because I know it's just been an absolute roller coaster for everybody. I mean, there's so much history being made right now, and you don't know what fire to pay attention to, what group to be working with. It's a lot. And I function fantastic in chaos and crisis, and this has been damn near overwhelming.
So just based on what you just said, I feel like I just have to ask, what are your thoughts on RFK Jr.? Remember, we're not allowed to swear.
Yeah. Um, The nicest thing that I could put it would be he's a whack job. And let me be very clear too. Okay. So I have lupus SLE, and it was not discovered until after the birth of my second child. So I've been diagnosed for like 13 years. Okay. And I have had to have a very fine balance of medication and then, almost kind of a naturalistic, holistic supplement, extra vitamins, those types of things like yoga, meditation, like just different aspects. I had to learn balance. I will also share with you my oldest son. He is autistic. And I have done a lot of research into vaccines, and I will tell you there for a while, especially being out here in rural Kansas, the propaganda is real. It is a real thing. And I remember when it was Jenny McCarthy, was it off the real world? And then she wrote a book. Well, that's whenever I was having, my oldest teens. And I remember reading her books and just thinking, and all my children are vaccinated. I also believe though, too, like parents, you can go slow with the vaccines. You don't have to get, all 3 or all 6 shots on the same day. There's ways to advocate for yourself. There's ways to educate. And one of my big things is we've got to educate these rural areas. Because like we have a chiropractor around here telling people do not get vaccines. Mm-hmm. And we're in a population of 14,000. So you can imagine how fast that spreads. Yeah. And so when you have people like RFK Jr., not advocating for like the measles and TB right now in Kansas. Huge.
I live in Texas, so I am definitely, I keep procrastinating it, but I need to go get. Apparently, the measles vaccine can wear off. So
I have read that. And here's
you want to know
thing.
Something scary about the measles that a lot of people do not know, and I think is really relevant to the whole natural immunity crowd, is that what's his name? Benjamin. Can't think of his name, but I had an immunologist on the show, and he was explaining when you get the measles, one of the effects of it is every time you get sick, your immune system kind of stores how to beat that disease, as it's as it figures it out and it beats that disease. It has like a memory bank that tells it how to fight that disease. What measles does is it wipes out that entire memory system. So it's not like AIDS where it destroys your ability to fight it, but you have to, every time you get a disease after that, your body has to relearn how to combat that disease. So if you are at all fond of your natural immunity, which most of us would be, we should get the measles vaccine. Like that protects your natural immunity. Because if you get measles, all your natural immunity is gone.
Now, I will tell you something super interesting too. And this is why, I take a lot of time to research and be careful, of the words and stuff that I use, what I say, is because like I having lupus and stuff, I cannot, so they want me to have, the flu vaccine and the COVID vaccine and stuff. But every time we've done it, I react to everything. But my lupus is also so progressed that my immunologist basically has said that I am intolerant of everything right now. Foods, just everything. So it's also too, helping people understand, how to utilize these vaccinations in the best interest of themselves and others.
Right.
I think that COVID.
You need to rely on herd immunity.
Oh, yeah.
If you can't get immunized, you need to rely on people that can get immunized being immunized so that measles can't get a foothold. And then you run the risk not being able to get it, not being able to get the vaccine. You run a higher risk of getting measles Also, because your immune system is compromised, it's going to affect you worse if you get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mommy.
Did I lose my?
You just froze temporarily, but we're still here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. All right. So anyway, I'll go on to the next question then. I think like the whole, I mean, anyway, I really appreciate what you just brought up, Jess. There's just a whole conversation that could just redirect the entire podcast on that.
Yep.
So let's say let's jump to 2028 just to kind of get an idea of where your perspectives are. And what is your, by the way, I should tell what my view is. I would call myself a democratic institutionalist. I believe in democracy, although I think what we have right now is becoming less and less of one. I believe, like, I think that we should have a democracy where my vote counts the same as anybody else's. But right now we have a democracy where some people's vote count more than other people's votes. In terms of, like somebody in Wyoming, because they have more electoral votes, because the congressman represents fewer people, that person actually has more voting power than I do, even though they're just the same number of people as I do. So I think we have an imperfect democracy, and I think a lot of the policies, or a lot of the reasons for that, were to protect slavery. And so I think we need to, modernize our democracy. But I do believe in the power of government. I believe that a well-run government is the best way to protect us. I think it's the best way to ensure that the wealthy don't just hoard everything, rather than making sure that the wealthy do hoard everything. Like, I believe in the institutions of government, but I believe that they are better run if we actually have a democracy where everyone can be represented, which is not what we have right now. But anyway, so we'll go on to the next question, which is, we'll start with Jess this time, since we started with John the first time. It's 2028, and your favorite candidate, your dream ticket is running. What is your dream ticket for president in 2028?
I honestly, I have a few different thoughts. There's a couple powerful women who I really like coming up. I'm a big Jasmine Crockett fan. Big. I also like AOC a lot. AOC, she gets her stuff done. PDB, I really like Pete. But I'm going to tell you that I truly feel like democracy is going to look different in 2028. I am not quite sure how things are really going to look over the next couple of years. And I will be very interested to see if we still have a Democratic Republican parties. In my opinion, because I feel like everything really is going to burn down. I mean, there's really not a lot that's going to be left. And I feel like the people who are actually fighting for, democracy and out there doing the work, that this time when it is a complete collapse, that I have a lot of faith that we are going to be able to pick it back up and build it better. And actually right.
Do you have a cat?
That's a dog.
Oh, that's a dog.
Yes, there's a Boston. He's
really. Sorry.
You're fine.
Animals are welcome on this show, just so you know. So
well, great. My office, I've been in the process of redoing the spare bedroom into my office. So it's in the middle of renovations right now. So I'm in my bedroom.
So
Thank you.
you have a real home. That's what you have. Like
I do.
dogs,
I have a
kids.
very busy, active home. I am living that American dream.
So as far as like AOC goes and Jasmine Crockett, first of all, like my thoughts on Jasmine. Have you noticed Fox News always tries to characterize her as like sounding black and how she's trying to sound ghetto and stuff like that? But if you ever go, because she actually sounds Texan. If you were a white person talking exactly the same way, they would not care, because she says y'all and stuff, right?
Oh,
But
yeah.
she's from Texas. In Texas, we say y'all. Y'all understand that if you're in Texas. But if you were to like transcribe what she says, and almost everything she says is like, if you were to write something down and proofread it and kind of review it, everything she says is like grammatically perfect and the syntax is perfect. She's actually extremely articulate in what she says, as opposed to a certain guy that talks about Arnold Palmer's penis for half an hour. So
She is very intelligent. If you really listen to her, she is very intelligent. She knows her stuff. One thing about
from the same frame, got her law degree from the same place as what's her name, the Supreme Court Justice, Amy Coney Barrett.
This is what I'm going to tell you about Jasmine. She is well-rounded. Mm-hmm. She is smart, but she is also street smart. She is not stupid to anything.
No.
Jasmine, to me, what I really like about her, and I will tell you as a woman and as a mother, like, I am so thankful that we are having some kind of younger women rise up to be role models for our teens. We know some of the women that our teens have had to, watch as role models. And I really think that it is, it's very important. And I am so grateful that right now, that AOC and Jasmine are around for these young women, because we do, even as we're talking about getting out there and getting younger people out to vote and helping them to understand, when you have people that are on their level or can bring it down to their level, that helps. And you guys, these kiddos are our future. I look at my teens and none of them are perfect, but I can tell you, I am so proud of like who my teenagers are, who their friends are. Like, there's a lot of teens out there actually doing pretty gosh darn good things.
Yeah. I had a kid on my show, senior in high school, that from North Carolina. His name was Zach. I want to say Zachary Thomas or something. Anyway, he tried to organize this town hall to get his Republican congressman, to come and answer questions to the to his constituents. And he's a 17-year-old kid, junior in high school, actually, I think. Anyway, really impressive kid. And that's one reason why I think we need to like allow them into the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Like we say, just get in line, just vote blue no matter who. Mm-hmm. And it's like, in the general elections, I'm 100% on board with that. But when you start slamming David Hogg for trying to recruit people to challenge in the primaries, these kind of just, some of these Democrats that are not really doing a good job of representing their constituents. No, that's why we have primaries. There's no default that you won the election, so now you get to stay representative for the rest of your life. Like, forget that. No, you need to defend your record, and people need to be able to challenge you. So, and I think once we allow them into the conversation, they will be they will participate in the democracy. So anyway, John, it's up. It's your turn. Your dream ticket is.
I'm not going to get ahead of the voters. That's up to the voters, but I will comment on some of the things that Jess has pointed out about different, some of the working class heroes and new blood coming up through the ranks and proving themselves by speaking truth to power. I think that's really exciting to people. I think David Hogg, not just as a co-founder of March for Our Lives, but just as an all-around organizer, is putting a lot of needed energy, electrifying people, and give them a cattle prod to the buttocks where needed, and go ahead and primary people who aren't really speaking for the people, standing up, fighting for the rights that are being eroded on a daily basis. We need some more of that kind of energy. And I think, Jess mentioned, for example, AOC. Obviously, she's a working class hero. Used to be a bartender, went to Congress, and she's speaking for everyone, not just for women, not just for Latinas, but she makes broad arguments like Bernie Sanders does. And God bless them for barnstorming around the country, drawing crowds that way outnumber Trump's, 30,000 plus people rallying because finally someone is standing up and making sort of the economic arguments that, everybody holds a stake in, the pocketbook issues that are hitting everyone because of these stupid, ungodly tariffs. They're punishing American workers. They're punishing American consumers as a form of taxes on consumers, and then just ripping away the rights of people. And that's why I was so glad that Jess mentioned Jasmine Crockett and her ability to meet people where they are, not condescending, not pandering, not speaking down to people, but just speaking in a clear way that people can relate to and understand. She does have the law degree, but she doesn't put it in highfalutin terms. She will say y'all, like the Texans, as you're pointing out. But I think what gives Jasmine Crockett that ability to reach people is she came up through the ranks as a public defender. And when you're a public defender, you are handling hundreds of cases in a year, and you see all kinds of people's situations. And you see the problems of mass incarceration, over criminalization, government overreach, lack of government accountability, lack of transparency, the erosion of civil rights and safeguards. I mean, right now, this administration is attacking lawyers for defending their clients. Sixth Amendment rights to a trial. This administration is arresting judges because they don't like their political opinions. This administration is arresting students for expressing opinions in peaceful marches and in opinion essays. And so the administration says we're going to start with trying to secretly deport migrants to foreign gulags. And then the next step is going to be, Trump says, we're going to start deporting the homegrowns. Well, that's you and me. We're the homegrowns. Yeah. Anyone that this administration doesn't like, they can point the finger at and say, like the old Twilight Zone episode where the boy would wish people into the cornfield. We're going to wish you into the foreign gulag in El Salvador. And that is an authoritarian government. And I think people like Jasmine Crockett and AOC understand that and can speak truth to power, as does David Hogg. And another person that Jesse mentioned was Pete Buttigieg. I used to have more mixed feelings about him. I was excited about the fact that, he and Chase, his partner as a gay couple, were, vigorously standing for issues like marriage equality, that I think most Americans can actually get behind. The idea of equal rights, not special rights, just equal opportunities, equal rights. And they were a very relatable couple. The thing that was kind of an asterisk where I had some hesitation was I felt sometimes Pete could be a little bit too close to corporations, insurance companies and things like that. So I had some doubts. But when I saw he was appointed as Secretary of Transportation, he was such an able and effective administrator. But the thing that really started winning me over was when he would go on the conservative broadcast outlets like, Fox and the others, and go toe to toe with the propagandists and blowhards and just dismantle them with a smile. And he wouldn't lose his cool, and he would master the facts, and he would again speak in a concise, persuasive, using the head but also the heart, a way that would reach middle America. And I thought he was great at reframing issues. And he would box with them without seeming overly pugnacious, but he would be determined. He would cede no ground, and he would win his point, and often just shut them up and leave them flabbergasted and flailing. And I thought, that's the kind of person we need with fire in the belly. So I was so excited to see that Pete several years ago had moved with Chase to from Indiana to Michigan, and that he's sending out feelers for a possible Michigan to fill the open U.S. Senate seat in Michigan. I think he's got to be on the short list. Anybody's short list to give him a very serious look in terms of funding and organizing and getting out the word for his campaign, because that's the kind of fighter we need. And yeah, he could be a future contender for a presidential ticket. Any of these could be.
I really like Pete. I actually like all three of those people. And the one thing that they have in common is they all have some people that will add butts to their name. But Pete Buttigieg is gay. But Jasmine Crockett is a black woman. But AOC is a woman, and a Latino. Like there's this idea that I've heard people on the left say, because we lost with a black woman and because we lost with Hillary Clinton, we can't win if there's a woman on the ballot. We can't win if there's a gay on the ballot, or if there's a person of color on the ballot, or if there's, whatever. And it's like, if we start saying you have to be a cisgender, straight, white male to run for president, we've already lost. We have just become what we're trying to defeat, right?
Exactly.
We need to, the best person needs to be on the ballot. I don't care. Yep. And if that's a straight white male, then so be it.
Okay.
Right.
I'm not saying.
I'll tell you who it's not going to be. It will not be Gavin Newsom. If Gavin Newsom is the only Democrat on the ballot, I will campaign against him. I will never vote for a sellout like Gavin Newsom, who, when his party needs him, he's inviting on his podcast, he's inviting the likes of Steve Bannon, to go curry favor.
And when he came out with his when he came out with his anti-trans comments, I used to like him. And but I think he burned, once he went with anti-trans crap, then I think he burned his bridges with the Democratic Party.
Yeah, he's dead to me after that. No way. Because that's what I'm saying. You cannot sacrifice people, your allies, people on your side. You cannot throw other people under the bus for political expediency, because then you really believe in nothing. If you don't believe that human rights applies to everyone, everywhere, all the time, with no exceptions, then you really don't believe in human rights.
Right, exactly.
Well, and what I think we're seeing here too, you guys, is that people are so done. I mean, if you think about it, this has just been years in the making. It doesn't matter if you're at Quick Shop, at Taco Bell, at, some fancy restaurant. Like, people are just tired of all the bull crap. And it is like, as people, they're done. As, leaders and representatives of stuff, like, they're done. Like, people are not accepting just kind of mediocre bull crap anymore. There's nothing left to cover up and hide, or, even petty bull crap is gone out the window. Exactly. Nobody has time for it. Like, we are moving forward. We need strong people. And that is truly what I think we are going to see for the next runaround. And I feel fairly confident that we are also going to see a lot of the just crappy Republicans. They're done. They're gone. I have a lot of hope for like the state of Kansas. But I do. I think that we're going to see a big, huge shift, you guys, because we're just done. We have nothing left to give.
There, but I do want to say one thing about Jasmine Crockett, and that is, I'm not saying that she is secretly in love with me. I am just saying she has never denied being secretly in love with me. So, you know, whatever that means. But yeah, I love both her and AOC. I think they're both brilliant. And I also really I love the whole grandpa granddaughter relationship between AOC and Bernie, the way he's kind of taken her under his wing. Like there are people that will say like Bernie should run. Bernie's too old. Like we're done. We're done with that generation. Like
Bernie is out there doing the work, y'all. He makes me tired.
I'm not knocking Bernie, but I mean, he's going to be like almost 90.
Oh,
you know, I mean, it's you know, like we don't need a repeat of what happened with Biden. Like, I do think that we need to go to the next generation. And I think it says something that a guy that is older than Santa Claus is the one that's speaking to the younger generation the most. I do think that's ironic, but
But you're talking about a true leader, you know, and if you look at the situation and you look at Bernie, and you know,
but that's why I appreciate he is.
Oh,
he
absolutely.
acknowledges that, and that's why he's raising up his replacement.
And when I talk about like there being a shift, you guys, like I really do foresee actual people like working together, like Senate, Congress, like when this is, excuse me, sit down. When this is all said and done, I really do think that there's going to be a lot more teamwork and stuff because what we used to accept is no longer acceptable.
As I was saying, the next generation matters. So,
and will be heard.
yes, it's like he's not going to take a back seat to anybody. So let's go on to the next question. John already kind of touched on it. Oh, but actually before that, what about issues? What is the most important issue to you? I mean, like I know you had mentioned before something about like human rights, but like in terms of policy issues, like if what is it like universal health care or like what do you really want to see coming from the Democratic platform?
Adherence to the rule of law. It scares me that we are deporting people without a criminal charge and without a fair hearing to foreign gulags where they're tortured and live in overcrowded, inhuman conditions. And the administration is openly flouting the orders of judges and arresting judges. The other day, White House spokes Leavitt said at a presser that she wouldn't rule out the arrest of a Supreme Court justice. She's trying to send a message. She started with this magistrate judge of Wisconsin, Judge Hannah Dugan. You know, they had her arrested. Now, this is unheard of. You never have federal law enforcement like FBI show up to arrest a judge anywhere in any state for any reason ever. The way to do it with a judge, the way it's always been done, is they're a judge, they have ties to the community. They're not going to flee. It's not some criminal here. You issue them a letter requesting an appearance, and they will appear because they uphold the rule of law. That's their job. So no arrest is required in any form. If it were, you would normally be coordinating with a local law enforcement. They dispatched federal goons to make a public spectacle, arresting the judge with overpowering her 20 people in the courthouse,
And then they
in
drag
front of
her
her
out in handcuffs
colleagues
or something.
to make a spectacle. It's trying to intimidate people. Now, the hearing, after all of that big spectacle, the hearing lasted 4 minutes. And, her lawyer, Wisconsin defense lawyer, Craig Mastantuono, the hearing was over in 4 minutes. She was released on a personal recognizance bond. The next hearing is scheduled, May 15, I believe, at 9 a.m. And since then, she started with Craig, but she's pulled in a dream team of 3 other, the most high-powered stellar lawyers that she could bring in. She's now got a dream team of 4 high-powered defense counsel. She's looking not only to win the case, but to make, an affirmative rebuttal that it was wrong to arrest her. She did nothing wrong.
No.
And every judge and every lawyer in the country is just electrified over the injustice and the display, the dominance display from Trump of not only arresting her, but then smearing her in from official statements that just aren't true from the White House. And this cannot stand, because again, it's like they start with the immigrant and then they go for the homegrowns, regular citizens like you and me. They'll start with a magistrate judge in Wisconsin that they think they can just pick off and kind of separate from the herd. Already, they also recently arrested a former judge in New Mexico who had a tenant who had immigrated to the U.S. with papers. He had sought asylum in the U.S., and they found some reason to have a problem with that immigrant, so they wanted to target the immigrant and also arrest the judge for simply having been his landlord and say that was some sort of conspiracy. And so the judge is, in New Mexico, the former judge has filed papers saying this is all a big misunderstanding. This isn't what you claim it to be. But, it's starting to be a trend. They're targeting the judges that they think they can pick off easily, and then they're going to work their way up. And again, Carolyn Leavitt, the White House spokes, has refused to rule out even the arrest of a Supreme Court justice. They will stop at nothing to show that basically they want to install Trump as a king with no checks or balances. And that's not what the American people voted for. No one wants that. That's not a conservative position. That is a revolutionary.
You say Carolyn Leavitt, I say Nazi Barbie.
Exactly. She's like Baghdad Bob, right? No credibility. She's just a liar.
Guys, I will say I am waiting for the day for her to have her live breakdown. Like, it's gonna be filmed live when she has her breakdown. Like, it's gonna be epic. I will say I am excited for that moment.
So back to to Judge Dugan though. There is this talk about how the Republican and the Trump narrative is that she tried to send away these ICE agents that were there to arrest her, and then while they were away tried to sneak him out through the jury room or the jury door, and like so that he could get away. And she was just, the whole thing was a ploy to help him evade arrest. So John, what are the facts of the case? And
it's a case of overreach and overcriminalization. Every judge has a right and a responsibility to control their courtroom. Judge Dugan that did nothing wrong. She was simply saying, if you have a warrant, you have grounds to arrest, go ahead and arrest him. Not in
what's the difference between an administrative warrant and a regular warrant?
It's not really about whether they had the right to arrest, and I don't think that she was disputing the right to arrest. It was the time, place, and manner. Okay. She has the right to control her courtroom and say, not in my courtroom. This is not proper, to basically make her courtroom an unsafe environment where people feel intimidated. If we start doing that, then we lead to a slippery slope where no migrant's going to want to appear in court to defend their rights. And that is impinging on the fundamental constitutional Sixth Amendment right to counsel, the right to a fair trial. If you intimidate people and give them the idea, if you dare show your face in court, we're going to make up a pretext to pounce on you and arrest you and swarm you with federal agents. You cannot have that.
That's a good point. I hadn't considered that. So like,
yeah, she's going to win her case,
people,
and she's planning to embarrass the administration for daring to go after the judges. They think they're going to make an example of Judge Dugan. Judge Dugan's team is going to make an example of this administration's lawlessness and disrespect for the judiciary. That's what's going to happen here.
And her just like to add on, their whole case is that she tried to smuggle him out of there. She let him out the jury door, which goes into a private hallway, which then leads to the main hallway. Like, there's no other way out. And he walked right past ICE agents. An ICE agent rode the elevator down with him. And like, if she were really trying to smuggle him out, she would have tried to smuggle him out instead of sending him straight to where the ICE agents were, which goes with what you're saying.
They cannot prove
courtroom safe.
Yeah.
That's it.
They can't prove that she did anything for a corrupt purpose. Yeah. This is not going to stand. Yeah. This is going to be thrown out. And every judge, in the country, every defense counsel in the country, every decent lawyer in the country is electrified over this outrageous breach of decorum and disrespect for the courtroom and for the judiciary. This is just not going to stand, because they know that the legislative branch is just a bunch of weenies. They know that it's the judicial branch, and defense counsel are liberty's last champions in this case, along with, as you started off the show, the people themselves. And we can't just say it's up to the three branches of government: executive, legislative, and judicial. Important lesson that you pointed out from South Korea: the people took to the streets when their former president declared martial law illegally, and when he called out for military and law enforcement to block their parliamentary buildings so that lawmakers couldn't re-enter and vote on his impeachment. It was the people who interposed their bodies. They flung their bodies between the police and the military and the legislators and said, no, we the people will not allow this to stand. And so in the final analysis, it's going to be the people taking it to the streets and moving beyond politics of gesture. Peaceful marches are wonderful. I love to see the homemade signs. I love to see the numbers of people coming out and speaking passionately, but there will be a point where the politics of mere gesture will not be enough. And it will be the people, not violently, not illegally. It will be lawful. It will be moral and ethical, but the people will forcefully begin to move with plan and strategy and say, we're beyond merely speaking our piece. We are going to interpose our bodies and peacefully insist that Congress represent us and do your jobs, and that the executive branch allow the judges and lawyers to do their jobs. And we're going to not allow any more planes to be taking off in the middle of the night, deporting innocent people with no criminal record, no criminal charge, no fair hearing to foreign gulags to be tortured and stuffed into overcrowded cells with no medical care, no heat, no air conditioning, no entertainment of any kind. In that CCOT, that mass prison in El Salvador, the gym and the cafeteria are for the guards, not the prisoners. There is no form of radio or TV or books or games, newspapers, anything allowed. And those cells are so overcrowded, people don't even have a bunk to lie down in. There's not even floor space. They don't have clean toilets. They're defecating practically on the floor, toilets overflowing, no medical care, no standard of of treatment, no hearings, no charges. And, you know,
the
their
UN
president
has
is saying these people are going to
actually
be,
the UN
yeah,
has actually condemned Surcot as a violation of human rights. And there's
it
like
is.
to put what you're saying about the overcrowding into perspective, there is a minimum space of, you know, like square footage per prisoner that is allowed by human rights. It is 1/10 that minimum. Like you can see cells where it is like literally just wall to wall, uh,
Right.
barely even room to sit down, much less lay down. And it's just, I tweeted a picture and shared one on Blue Sky yesterday of just how crowded it is. Insane that people would be forced to live like this. And you know, like I know in some ways you want to say, especially they haven't even been convicted of anything, but it doesn't matter if they've been convicted of anything. They're human
No one
beings.
deserves that.
And
Yeah.
this is one of the things that Hitler did was dehumanize people, right? And you would just say, but I've seen chickens less packed in cages that are, you know, like we would look at and say that's inhumane. This
Yeah.
is just vile the way that these people are treated.
Well,
And
Trump, yeah.
he's talking about
Hitler
sending
deported
American
people to
citizens there.
Poland. He deported people to Treblinka and Auschwitz. Now,
Yeah.
Trump is already deporting people to El Salvador, and this week he's saying he wants to start talks with Libya and Rwanda to get them to build more prisons to house homegrowns like
Let's
you
call
and
them what
me.
they are: concentration camps.
They're
Well,
concentration
and
camps. They are.
correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't there something being built? Isn't there something being built there in Texas currently? Or
Yes, there
was
are
in the works?
detention centers, aka
So,
concentration camps,
so
being built here. Yes.
here's another fun fact for everybody to follow too, is here in Kansas, we have Leavenworth.
Mm-hmm.
And we are ICE and them trying to move in and take over the part that has been shut down for human rights for years. So that will be something super interesting to watch out of Kansas.
One of the detention centers is being built like a 15-minute drive from my house.
Really?
And people in that, you know, like on next door, people in that neighborhood are complaining about it. Just to give you an idea of how just incredibly messed up Texas is, people in that neighborhood are complaining about bringing those people into the detention, you know, oh, you know, like they're talking about how unsafe it is. And anyway, it's kind of disgusting. But just to summarize, John, your deal breaker is
Rule of
whoever
law.
wants, we need the rule of law reestablished, right? And due process reestablished. We have a president and vice president right now that are arguing against due process. And the irony of Donald Trump arguing against due process is like Jeffrey Dahmer giving a restaurant a 2-star review because they don't have enough vegan options. Like, come on. Of all the people that should be complaining about, you know, due process being allowed, Donald Trump is the last one. I mean, he's gotten more due process than anybody in the history of the country. So,
True.
okay. Jess, your turn. What is your absolute deal breaker?
My deal breaker, honestly, was just I knew everything was wrong, that everything about him just reeked of evil. I could smell it from a mile away. The narcissist being,
There's a lot more about him that you can smell from a
yeah,
mile away.
yeah, and that
it all depends on how close you are, if you know what I mean. Like it depends.
But that's what I'm surrounded with. That's how I knew it was wrong. Because like I left Great Bend. I've lived in Great Bend, Kansas. I left here when I got divorced like 9 years ago. Lived in Wichita, moved to Kansas City, and am back currently right now. And everything is who he is how this community is.
Mm.
And how this community is ran. So really where I'm at with everything, because there are so many things, you know, to fight for and pay attention. Like women's rights, immigration. Like, I'm part of the rapid response team here in Kansas. So right now, my main focus for everybody is keeping as many people as I can safe and in building community, doing things like this, meeting as many people as I can, letting people know that it's okay, having these platforms and being able to say, hey guys, remember to check on the elderly, remember to check on the handicap. Like, people are going to need stuff. Like, these are already people who needed extra support, and now this is all being taken away. um I don't worry necessarily like about myself or for my family and stuff, um because I'm so used to living like this. We've already been living paycheck to paycheck, for years. Like, I've already been on the front lines. I've been in the field. I know what people have experienced and what I have experienced. So I just really want to make sure to be a light right now for people, to let them know, that I am here, that there are people out there fighting for you. And it takes everybody. It takes from the protesters to getting out on the streets, to all the attorneys who have been involved, to us, people with podcasts talking about it, doing the work. I mean, there is honestly a role for everybody. If you think about it, we all have a role to play right now in helping to save America, save democracy.
So your deal breaker would be, as long as you're not caving to Trump, you're fine with it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, caving
I
to
have
Trump is your
raised
deal
my
breaker.
I have raised my children never to use the word hate. I've always disliked that word. I'm always like, you can dislike something, you don't have to like that, you can have a voice, but you do not hate. And I am telling you, I have never been so challenged to not have hate and to, try not to waste my energy on that. I basically locked myself down in my home probably about 3 months ago. And I'm not kidding you, because
I think she just froze. But I think on those lines, um, I've always looked at, if somebody's president, there's something there that's redeemable, right? So even like with Reagan, I think he maybe gets too much credit for ending the Cold War, but I think he did help tear down this wall. Mr. Gorbachev, I think, is a historic moment in our history. And I
Yep.
was actually in Germany when the wall came down. So that was like literally one of the most emotional moments of my life. Because I'm sitting there in a restaurant watching it on TV, surrounded by Germans that are just bawling their eyes out as they witness this. So I think Reagan gets credit for that. Bush too was a war criminal. And there are plenty of things I don't like about him. But though he had the redeemable thing of saving millions of lives in Africa with his helping with AIDS there. And that was like
PEPFAR, yeah.
Right. So like, I found redeemable things even about him. Donald Trump, I cannot find a single redeemable thing about. He's never made me think about anything. He's never made me go, that's a good point. He's never done anything for anyone other than himself. He is filled with hate, filled with animosity, and like, he is just the most detestable human being to ever occupy the White House. And
I'm going to give you one thing. I'm going to give you one thing to think a positive thing that happened under Trump's administration that wouldn't have happened if he had not allowed it to happen. The Second Chance Act, because April was Second Chance Month, when we acted on the idea that everyone deserves a second chance. People deserve, compassionate release if they're behind bars and, they're dying of cancer. Let them go home in peace and die with their families. People who have been sentenced to life without parole, for crimes committed when they were teens, deserve a second chance when they have, been behind bars, in some cases for decades, living exemplary lives, helping others. They deserve that second chance of being released on parole. And so under Trump, they did have the Second Chance Act, and April was Second Chance Month. And so, we're hoping.
But do you think like
that's
Joe
one
Biden would
good
have
thing that
vetoed that?
happened to build on that.
Would Joe
Pardon?
Biden have vetoed that? Like, did that happen sometime? Like,
not only because of Trump, but it did happen under Trump.
Yeah,
And
I think
in
sometimes
some
what
cases,
happens is like you see Trump supporters that will take credit for things that happened while Trump was president, but they didn't happen because Trump was president. Like,
well, he was very influential. He had to be persuaded, and he did make arguments for second chance. And he did. That's the one thing that I could point to. And so, just reintroduced in Congress right now on April 30 is a reintroduction of the Clean Slate Act and the Fresh Start Act. And we're actually hoping to flatter him and say, look, part of your legacy under the first administration was, what you did there, giving people second chances. Let's continue that and build on that with the Clean Slate Act and the Fresh Start Act. I think that there are enough conservatives on Capitol Hill, and if we flatter Trump and say this is part of your meaningful legacy, I think that's something that we could actually see as a positive development even under this current administration. Believe it or not, I'm keeping hope alive.
I hadn't heard of that, but I'll look into it. That's interesting. I do agree that, it should be a case. I'm not sure that, like I've just seen too many, like I've seen him like take credit for things that happened while he was president that were like, he never said anything about it before it happened. He didn't initiate it. He signed it into law, but it was like there was a veto proof majority. And he had been against it, or before, like the HBCU thing or whatever. Like, he takes credit for things that he had nothing to do with.
No, but he did. Actually, the Second Chance Act is part of his legacy. Remember when Kim Kardashian was going to the White House and talking to him about giving people second chances? He did come out and champion, and he did proudly sign and tout it. And hey, credit where credit's due. That is a positive thing. I'm not saying everything's wonderful and smelling like a rose. That's one thing. And maybe we could flatter him and say, build on that one, that foundation of legacy, carry it forward now. Maybe we could see a positive development in that particular area. And I think part of it, the idea of giving people second chances, he makes a hobby of talking about, ironically, the politicization of the Justice Department, which he is fervently politicizing, as we speak. But so let's work with that and say, if that's what you believe, Mr. President, don't you see there are political prisoners like, let's say, Joe Biden just pardoned Leonard Peltier, a Native American activist who was wrongly convicted for allegedly murdering an FBI agent, which he didn't do, but he was finally pardoned by Joe Biden. But that's the kind of person you could probably go to Trump and say, since you believe that in past the Justice Department has been overly politicized and led to wrongful convictions, let's take a look at some of the people currently still behind bars who deserve a second chance because they were put away in politicized cases where there wasn't good evidence against them. In some cases, they were framed. And in any case, many of these people have been serving for decades behind bars when they should be released already. There comes a point where it just becomes inhumane to keep holding someone for something that happened when they were a very young person many decades ago. And there's just no more point. They're not a danger, to the community. They've been living productive lives behind bars. Please give them their freedom. It's not helping anybody in America to just have this kind of mass incarceration that's just barreling along in America. It's no country throws people behind bars like the U.S. does. It's crazy.
Have you read a book called Framed by John Grisham and a defense? I can't think of the other guy's name. Have you read that?
I haven't read it. I've seen good reviews of it. Yes, it's an important book.
If you want to know how unreliable our justice system is.
Yeah.
It's on audiobook too, so you can just throw it in your car and listen to it while you're driving around. There are cases that are just unbelievable how much people were railroaded through the
Yeah.
judicial system. And they're not just black people. There's white people that it
Yeah.
happens to too.
And
So
it's the nonfiction book. The full title, I just looked it up. It's Framed: Astonishing True Stories of Wrongful Convictions by Jim McCloskey and John
Jim
Grisham.
McCloskey's the other guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
That's a great book.
it's been out, and they actually they said it was really, I think they got it down to like 10 stories, but they said there's thousands that they had to come through. And you know, they're all from like the defense projects and stuff like that, where they, anyway, just people that were, when you hear these stories, you're just like, why was this guy in prison for 28 years? You know, I mean, it's just unbelievable. We really need judicial reform. And but not for January 6th prisoners. they they were convicted fairly. Okay, so the next thing I want to discuss is, I think that Gaza is one of the most divisive issues on the left. And I have thought about this like almost nonstop, and I cannot come up with what is a good position on this. My think here's like, I was like very much in aware of what was going on in Gaza long before October 7th. I had a Palestinian friend who was like making me aware of these things, and just like some of the things that were outrageous, like they couldn't even get nutmeg, and you know, like one of their most favorite spices, they couldn't even import nutmeg. There are spices that they couldn't import. I mean, it is, you know, like they say it's an open air prison because it is, right? So the and then of course afterwards it was even worse. I mean, like their homes are being destroyed, their children are being killed. Like, no question, what Israel is doing to Gaza is human rights crimes.
Mhm.
That said, Hamas is a terrorist organization that went and kidnapped people from Israel that had nothing to do with what was happening in Gaza, and they killed a bunch of people, and when and how they killed people is in dispute, or how many people they killed and how they killed them is in dispute. But Hamas killed a bunch of people on October 7th. And but Hamas and Gaza are not synonymous. They last had an election in 2008, and the people that are alive right now in Gaza weren't even born then, much less old enough to vote. And they didn't even win with a majority of the vote. I probably like 12% of the population of Gaza voted for Hamas. That are still, so like that's like blaming everybody in America for Trump, even those of us who voted against him. Or
Right.
so there is no like, Hamas is wrong. Bibi is wrong. What the IDF is doing is wrong. And so there's like, it's just wrong versus wrong. Us funding IDF to do what they're doing is wrong. But there's also a political situation to where we have a very strong Jewish vote that doesn't want all of this to happen, or that we, if we just don't fund, and the fact is, if we don't fund Israel's military, there's a lot of people in the Middle East who would love to remove Israel from the map. And so it's just like, it just seems like no matter what you do, somebody's going to get killed and you're going to lose votes. Like, you can't, like, so what do you think the candidate's policy on Gaza should be, to where it is not going to lose votes, but it's still going to be morally correct? Because that I cannot find an answer to.
Well, I think it's always appropriate to stand up for everyone's every individual's right to freedom and to live with dignity. And so it's not hard to say Israel has the right to exist. It's not hard to say that killing men, women, and children at the hands of Hamas is wrong. It's not hard to say that under the Geneva Conventions, indiscriminate bombardment of civilians is a war crime and is wrong. It's not hard to say that genocide, one of the ways that one action which could be considered genocide is denying the necessary conditions for life, such as cutting off adequate food and water and medical supplies, that those are genocidal acts. It's not hard to just say that. It's not hard to say that Gaza is a test case for the use of AI powered drones who have consistently made mistakes in targeting civilians, including UN relief workers, NGO workers, reporters exercising freedom of speech, reporting vital information about stories of what's happening on the ground. They've even repeatedly targeted World Central Kitchen workers, simply there to provide food aid.
Like all of that is true.
Partisan
But
matter.
how do you address it? Like, how do you get Israel to stop committing those war crimes without disabling their ability to defend themselves against people that also want to wipe them off the map? Like, policy wise, how do you resolve that situation?
Well, it's not difficult to denounce someone who's, let's say, committing a mass shooting. That's not difficult, is it? We could all easily condemn
No, but you
someone.
can denounce somebody that's committing a mass shooting, and there are still
when you denounce someone doing a mass shooting, it's therefore not difficult to say, why don't we not resupply the mass shooter with ammunition?
Okay, but that's where the other side of the problem. If you stop supplying Israel with weapons, they can't defend themselves, and then
yes, they can.
Yes, they can.
You stop supplying them with reloading the ammunition while they're committing indiscriminate bombardment of civilians, war crimes, and genocide, and say our support is conditioned. There is support for you, but it is conditioned. It is not unconditional. If you start doing mass shootings, we're not going to keep feeding ammo to someone actively doing mass shootings, are we? That wouldn't make sense. Stop the mass shootings, and then, of course, you have the right to exist. You will be able to defend yourself when someone is actively attacking you, but that doesn't give you the right to indiscriminately slaughter men, women, and children who are not doing anything against you. So it's conditional support. And that means we're still your ally. You still have the right to exist. But
what
no,
about the
you don't have the right to use in our name with
what about the
our dollars? You don't have the right to kill in our name.
Okay, no. but here's the thing. Like, I'm just talking about this both as a moral and a political framework, right? So then the Republicans, let's say they take your perspective, right? Then first of all, they're saying, they're going to say, okay, so you're saying that Israel doesn't have the right to defend itself, even though that's
it does have the right to defend itself. This isn't defense. This is offense.
Oh no, I know that.
Just
hear me out for a minute. I'm talking about. Remember, Republicans don't frame things honestly. So if you're talking about, they're going to say you want to cut off weapons for Israel, taking away the right for them to defend themselves. I'm talking about again
weapons for Israel,
but they're going to be dishonest. Number one, that's what they're going to say.
Call them out for their dishonesty.
You're going to lose votes. Like
no, call them out for their dishonesty.
The number one, like if you look at the exit polling from the 2024 election, every single issue that Trump won on, they believe disinformation. So something like that, where you're trying to create this, and this is why I say it's got to be also political. Like it has to be politically viable, because it doesn't matter if you're correct. And I'm not saying you're not correct. I'm saying it's not viable. And if you lose the election and it's not viable, it doesn't matter if you're right or not. So they're going.
I think it's viable. I think most Israelis would love to depose Netanyahu, and most Jews in America are not supporting genocide in Gaza. I think it's very politically viable. I think that people lack the moral courage to stand for their convictions. And I think we are just showing a lack of spine, a lack of creativity, a lack of stick-to-itiveness. And I don't think that American voters, this is what they voted for. They're not voting for genocide against babies in Gaza. They're just not.
What if we said something like this? We will supply you the arms, but we control them.
I think it's conditional support.
Yeah.
If you want the re-up of intelligence and arms and ammunition, it's conditioned on you're using them lawfully. And if you're violating
They
international
kind of
law
did
and the
that.
laws
Like,
of war, then no.
okay,
A war criminal? Like,
Huh?
isn't he wanted for war crimes?
he's in the
Netanyahu
same
is.
situation as Trump. He's
So
the only president
my question is why are we even supplying them with anything if we have a war criminal? Like, why are we even how is it that we are having these conversations when we know that he is a war criminal and what is happening? Like,
the
how
other
do
side of it is that, I mean, like, this is the other side, and it's maybe a side that needs more honest perspective from some people on the left. Israel is threatened all the time by its neighbors. They sent, like, they try to bomb it all the time. They are constantly being threatened, and that's also true. Hamas did go in and take hostages. They still have some of those hostages. Like, those things are also true and valid. And like, two wrongs don't make a right, but neither do 2,000
Correct.
wrongs or 50,000 wrongs. And it's just, and this goes back, like, if you go back through the history of it, over and over again, it's like this person did that because this person did that because this person did that. And it's like a war between gangs, where it's just, they just look at, you killed Fido, or Fredo, you killed Fredo, and so then you killed Al, and then you killed, and they just keep killing each other because the last person killed somebody. And so there does need to be eventually a permanent solution to where, okay, both of you guys just stop killing each other. And that's more like what I'm looking for a resolution. I don't think, like, Bibi is a fascist, and I there's this, like, authoritarian fascist dictator coalition that's going on that Trump is unfortunately a part of. But Israel is wrong, but that doesn't mean they haven't been wronged, is what I'm getting at. And sometimes we ignore the fact that they were also wronged. The people at that time didn't commit genocide, but they're the ones that are being held captive and murdered. So, like, I don't know what the solution is. I know that if you, like, I have Jewish family that would that are Democrats, that would be really it would strain them to vote for somebody that did not advocate for Israel's ability to defend itself.
Yeah, Israel has a right to exist and a right to defend itself. Of course, that's easy to say, but not a right to commit indiscriminate bombardment of civilians, which is a war crime under the Geneva Conventions. That's also easy to say. It doesn't have to indiscriminately kill men, women, and children, relief workers, reporters, UN workers in order to defend itself. Those things are not, in fact, making Israel safe. They're making Israel less safe. So it's what they're doing is actually counter-effective to peace throughout the Middle East.
have either one of you guys watched the movie 2073?
No, never heard of it.
Recommend. So good. It is, it explains everything. I am Asaph, I hope I'm saying this right. I actually discovered him on Blue Sky and watched the movie, and it is a total global perspective of everything that's going on. And it goes back to like, I think the late 80s, but it fast forwards us into the future, like 2073. It fast forwards us, but it's basically like almost like a biography leading up to like where we're at right now. It is so good. Highly recommend.
I'll take.
Just
I'll,
FYI.
Send me a link for it. I'll take a
Okay.
look.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are well over an hour now. I thank you both so much for your input, and I think I appreciate that we were able to have a discussion where we don't like 100% agree on everything, but we didn't have to like yell at each other or anything. Like I think that's where we need to go, and I think we have, like, even on the Gaza thing, I agree that we need to do something to stop the indiscriminate killing. I just haven't been able to figure out a way that we get there pragmatically without losing in votes where it's so narrow. It's almost like in some ways I say we lost the election on October 7th because it was a choice between the Palestinian vote and the Jewish vote, and I mean, not entirely, but when you're talking about the margin that we have, like of less than 1%,
well, I would never throw our Palestinian friends and families under the bus, just as I would never throw our trans communities under the bus, and I would never throw our Israeli friends and families under the bus either. Sacrifice no one.
I don't think Kamala Harris was throwing them under the bus by saying that there's a two-state solution, and by, like Joe Biden was doing his best to get a ceasefire. And he had tried things like, building that little island thing or whatever to bring food in, circumventing IDF. Like, they were creatively trying to find ways to help Gaza and end the fighting. At the same time, the largest attack in 50 years on Israel happened, not on October 7th, but while all of this was going on, where like all these different countries, including Iran, tried to bomb, and Joe Biden like kind of was able to successfully bring enough to defend Israel from that massive missile attack. So, there's some things like maybe don't give them offensive weapons, just give them defensive weapons, things like that maybe we could look more at. But like when people would say Genocide Joe, as though Joe Biden was actively promoting wiping out Gaza or something like that, or like that was something he was trying to start the secret. Donald Trump is literally arguing for ethnic cleansing. Like, that's genocide. And to like act like there's no difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump on the issue, or Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and Donald Trump on the issue. To me, that's offensive.
That's a false equivalence. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Trump was actively phoning up Netanyahu and saying, you know what, don't make a peace deal because it would make me look bad in the polls.
Yeah.
So he's actively undermining, and now he's planning to, turn Gaza into like a development project,
property.
Which is just a sick idea and illegal and immoral.
Everything that administration loves. What are you talking about?
So, and his voters apparently. So anyway, thank you both for joining. Thank you both for your input. Thank you for making me think about things. I really appreciate that. So before we go, I always give my guests a chance to pitch things. I don't have my reading glasses on, Jess, but I see your thing says founder of
Rio Sways. Yep. Rio Sways is my advocacy group. My father, Michael Rios, passed away in 2022 from cancer. And he was like my absolute hero. He was a recovering addict. He was huge into the NAAA world. I could recite the Serenity Prayer way before I should have. But he has just always supported me, you know, in my career and what I was doing and having a voice. And so, in honor of him, I have created Rios Ways. I created it actually after Hurricane Helene had struck, and I was doing just some remote work for that. And anyways, that has all led me here, and now I just work on my advocacy group and trying to help save America.
Do you have?
Is there a website?
Or a website?
There, yes, there is a website. You can go to Rios Ways. Somebody just helped me make a Rios Ways resistance directory. I cannot think of her name right now. Patsy Evans, Dr. Patsy Evans.
Okay.
Anyways, she had made a resistance directory, and she has linked it up with Rios Ways. And so I can put that in the chat. I do have a YouTube channel for Rios Ways, but this is all just kind of fallen in my lap. I was working in the schools part-time with autistic kiddos, and I am now just staying at home and really putting myself out there to help others. Like, that is what I know I have always been. That's what I was made to do. So now I'm just embracing it and going.
If you want to send me a link, I will put it in the description so that if anybody wants to look at it, they can find out. John, do you have any? You're a right wing, or you're a human rights activist. Sorry, you're a human opposite of a right. You're a human rights activist. Do you have an organization you want to pitch, or a website, or anything like that?
Today is a wonderful day to make a contribution to National Public Radio and/or the public broadcasting system, because today Trump is attacking through an executive order NPR and PBS and Sesame Street and asking that they be defunded. So it's really the purview of Congress to determine how the people's money is spent. And although only 1% of NPR's budget comes from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, it is important as a public resource because it's not just the educational programming and the news that's non-biased that we get, but it's also these are part of the public alert systems in cases of natural disasters. So we actually need NPR and PBS for national strategic reasons to secure our safety in cases of, say, a war, an attack, a natural disaster. This is how we inform the people. NPR reaches 99% of the American public with unbiased information. And so it's an important public resource. So today is a great day to write your Congress critters and tell them, stand up to the idea of defunding NPR and PBS, and especially to go to your local affiliates for National Public Radio and Public Broadcasting System, protect Elmo and Sesame Street, donate to your local affiliates, and ask your Congress critters to shut down this nonsense of trying to pull the plug on federal funding for these important national resources.
Elmo, not Elon. Stop calling
Elmo,
Elon Elmo.
not Elon.
Elmo is awesome. Don't give Elon the credit, right? So, okay, that's a great pitch. I think both are incredible sources of information that's unbiased. And I do say sometimes that, reality has a liberal bias, so I can see why conservatives get upset with that. But, it's sorry, truth is truth. And if you disagree with the truth, then maybe you need to rethink your position on things. But thanks for joining me. It looks like Jess popped off after her kid started being a kid again. So anyway, I really appreciate you joining on. I appreciate your input and making me think. And I'll see you around on Blue Sky and Signal. So I'll talk to you later.
Cheers.